We're going to do 178 performances this year. So we are a busy theater. So you need 2 rehearsal spaces. So the idea came, well, we could build the rehearsal spaces in the brand new theater, and you'll appreciate this as a real estate agent, at $650 a square foot. Or across the street, we can remodel the old Cinema 6 movie studio, and remodel that for $95 a square foot or whatever it came in, right?
Yeah.
So we're putting 2 rehearsal spaces in there, but the big auditorium number 1, is going to be our live performance space.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert Macfarlane. And today we are taking a detour from typical politics and stuff going on here in Southern Utah. And we are talking to the president and artistic director for the St. George Musical Theater. There's big things happening with the St. George Musical Theater. They're currently renovating an old megaplex or an old movie theater. They're getting ready to build on 2 acres a big performing arts, community performing arts center here in St. George. So we talked to him about that project that they're doing, the different shows they have this year. So if you're a local in St. George, or if you're coming here to visit and interested in the community theater, we got one of the best ones around. So you're definitely going to want to check out the St. George Musical Theater. We hope you enjoy this episode. Bruce is a great guy. It was a fun conversation. And let us know in the comments. Let us know what you think. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Do all those things so we can keep this thing rolling. Thank you to all of our sponsors and the people supporting us. Every single day we're growing our subscriber base, and we're just super happy that we're connecting with the community. So enjoy the episode, guys. We'll see you out there. We got Bruce Bennett here in studio with St. George Musical Theater. What's your actual title?
President and Artistic Director of St. George Musical Theater.
President and Artistic Director. And then the CEO, his name's Damon.
Diamond McPherson is the chairman of our board of directors. We've got a fabulous board of directors made up of pillars of our community.
So shout out to him and the board of directors. Who else is on the board?
So our vice chairman is Tony Allen, longtime attorney here in town. Anybody who's lived here over 20, 30 years knows Tony. And Christine Carter, Councilwoman Danielle Larkin is on our board.
I'd be surprised if she wasn't.
County Commissioner Gil Almquist, Neil Marchant, Keith Tintle, Bart Smith with Split Rock Construction. So like I said, a lot of phenomenal people on our board. Dave Brinley, who is a retired general counsel of Shell Oil, moved here, and he's actually a performer too. He's in Legally Blonde, which I'm sure we're going to talk about at some point.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just a great board. Anybody who runs a nonprofit, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit, knows the board of directors is a key cornerstone for your success.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to have a big advocacy group like in your corner.
Sure.
Especially when the mission is that it is for you guys being a nonprofit, but then also being part of the arts, like being part of the arts.
Absolutely. They have to raise money, and we'll talk a little bit more about the goals that we have. Very ambitious goals to raise money for 2 theaters actually. And we're doing great though. We're past the halfway point. So
all right. So we're gonna get in as far as the podcast recording stuff starts. So if you're on Facebook Live, we're going to jump in and do just the podcast here. So again, thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. We're going to get into the podcast portion of it. So leave comments, but we'll engage on another episode when we can get into the comments.
So I guess you could say 435 is Facebook Live.
435 is Facebook Live. That's why I need you. You're an artistic director. I need you on this on the team. Absolutely. Okay, so St. George Musical Theater. So something that's always been super important to me is the arts. I didn't actually recognize this until I was an older individual, which is surprising, I think, to probably my parents. They're like, "Oh, we always thought you were artistic," but I don't think it really clicked until I got into a college art class.
Oh, interesting.
And then I went and backpacked Europe after I graduated from college, and I only wanted to go to the museums. Like I literally,
there's amazing museums over there,
and I just
if
went
you don't
from
like
city
the art
to
in
city.
Europe, you don't like art.
Exactly, and I spent just hours and hours in just and not having to go with somebody. I could just because I backpacked by myself. I could just take my time, and then some stuff I just go right past, and then other stuff,
they really value art because in Europe, art is history, and history is art. So, and we do too. to this in this country, but I think we are more about performing arts because we're a different type of country,
Yeah.
But it's still.
We also just don't have the history.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of people, I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day about why, what makes us different as a country from a cultural standpoint versus, and we were actually talking about this is totally not what I want to talk about as far as politics goes, but like Russia and Ukraine and like understanding like the long history of like some of these conflicts and stuff like that. And I'm like, we just don't have that much history in the United States in comparison to these thousands of years of generations that have been, farming this specific land. Right. And that, I think that really trickles into that art because art is a reflection of the cultural time period in which it's made. And in Europe, they valued it, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And, from a cultural standpoint, we just don't have that really here.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially the visual arts, I would say too, but we're getting more and more museums here, but it's okay. There's a diversity of art, just like there should be a diversity in culture. And what is so great that we can travel and visit art, and it helps us appreciate all kinds of art. We were last year in the United Kingdom, and we were in London a couple of days. We went to Scotland, Ireland, Wales. I made a lifelong dream come true, hanging out in Liverpool for a day.
That's cool.
Going to all the Beatles sites,
Nice.
and what it does is it inspires you.
Yeah.
Right. It inspires you to say, yeah, art has this amazing value. And I think you should expose your kids to art from all different types of cultures and walks of life, because it will inspire them to create art on their own.
Yeah.
And I think obviously I'm very biased, but I think the arts are a backbone of your society. Use the word reflection. I would say it is a reflection of your society too.
In the time frame too that it's made,
Totally,
right? Like it has
Yeah.
a lot of that. And especially artists that have real, I think there's a lot in the art world that what is art to one person is garbage to another, right?
Yeah,
right. There's a lot of that, but
Sure.
if you look at some of these classic and real, elevated artists, whether it's performing arts,
Sure.
music, or, paintings, things like that,
Right.
The best of the best really do a good job of reflecting their culture. That's part of what makes them so famous and what makes them so widely accepted as being amazing and great.
And I love that there's a lot of famous musicians, for example, artists that are really, really well known, who got their start and were inspired by, a sixth grade art teacher, like your art teacher, or they did a play in high school. Tom Cruise was a football player and banged up his knee as a senior in high school, and they asked him to be in a high school show. That changed his life. He was going to be a Jesuit seminary student.
Wow.
He was going into
I didn't know that.
seminary.
Interesting.
And once he got on stage, he realized, oh, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And thank goodness, right? We wouldn't have Top Gun without him.
Right.
So we love that. And this is where we get to why we feel that the performing arts, especially in our humble but wonderful little community of Southern Utah, is so essential. Take Legally Blonde. We probably have 10 kids in there that are from 17 to 24 years of age. And it provides for them a great environment to express their art. But, I was a sports kid growing up. I don't know if you were, but I was.
Yeah, I did a couple of different things. I was... I sat on the bench a lot. Let's be honest. I sat on the. I played on the baseball team, but I didn't get a lot of help playing.
But it was you followed a love.
Yeah.
And I discovered performing arts later in life too. Although I loved music growing up, I loved sports. But then after a few years, somebody said, "Well, how come you love theater so much?" And I think I realized that it filled that void from team sports because there's a lot of the same principles, right? Teamwork, camaraderie, working towards a goal, discipline.
Yeah.
All of those things to perform theater or performing arts, all of those principles are just as important.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, what did being able to throw a 50-yard spiral after high school do me? Nothing. No good, right?
My wife and I had this conversation about our boys. It's like, I want them to play sports, but I also want them to do a physical activity that when they're 40, they can still do, right?
Okay, Robert, it's called singing and dancing.
Yeah, singing and dancing.
And we need boys.
Yeah,
we need boys. Every theater will tell you need young men in there. And the world is their oyster. If you're a boy that can sing and dance, you are in high demand.
High demand. Yeah. And so that's the thing is trying to find things that they love to do and not projecting my own. Like, I like this. So
yeah, you let them experiment.
Exactly.
Because you never know. All three of my kids kind of chose different loves and affections, for what they are. And I had 3 kids, and one of them was really into theater too. The other 2, one was a musician. The other one was, more in dance. Mm-hmm. But they all were able to explore their own abilities and creativity that way. And all 3 of them had great experience, especially very difficult times in their lives in the teenage year and young adult years, that they could fall back on these skills.
Yeah, it's an amazing gift, and that's why I think this project in particular is such a something that's important to me, that I think is a great value to the community. As much as other people might argue that may listen to the podcast that using taxpayer money towards arts, I've heard this lots, is a waste of money. I disagree with you wholeheartedly, and I think there's a lot of evidence to prove that. However, as far as theater goes, how long have you been doing this particular thing here in St. George?
So we moved here 27 years ago, and so I've been doing this for 26 years.
Nice.
It just so happened I moved around the corner when we moved to St. George from California. I moved around the corner from Don and Donna Kenworthy, who are the founders of St. George Musical Theater. And they immediately grabbed me and put me in theater. I didn't even know there was community theater in town. I'd done a little bit of community theater in California and loved it, and figured that was behind me when we moved here, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they got me involved, and I've been involved ever since. The first 12 to 15 years, I was on various committees. I did marketing for them, but I was mainly a performer in shows.
Yeah.
And then I was asked to come back and help relaunch St. George Musical Theater after the theater went dark for 6 years, when our venue where we were using was torn down to make way for the Town Square project. So we were dark for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And so that came our comeback.
Yeah.
So in 2014, we came back. Yep. And it was all of us were volunteers at that time. Mm-hmm. And that was 65 shows ago.
Wow.
So in 10 years, we've done 65 different productions. I think 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of them have been repeats. We just did Sound of Music in January and February, sold out every show, and that was the first show of our comeback. So almost every show was new.
Man, and that's something to be said too, because when you can do it and then doing it again, it's a lot easier, isn't it?
Winning an audience back. Anybody who's been in a business, lost the business, and trying to get people to come back is particularly challenging. Mm-hmm. But we have an amazing community. We knew how to be successful because we were successful before. I basically took everything I learned from the previous iteration of St. George Musical Theater and try to recapture it with some different changes. And, when you go through a pain or some very difficult challenge in your life, if you don't learn something from it, you just stay angry.
Yeah.
Right? Or sad, or both. And so we were determined that we would learn some lessons from what we had experienced before. And I think we did. And the community has just embraced us, and it's been amazing. And the reason I didn't know 20 years ago I'd be doing this. This was not a life career plan, but really one of those few fortunate people where your career takes a completely different turn, a right-hand turn somewhere that you weren't expecting. And it's a very challenging thing what we do, but it's also easily the most rewarding and satisfying thing I've ever done. So
yeah, that's awesome. So maybe help anybody listening, or just the dummy that I am. What's the difference between the community theater? Obviously, there's the nonprofit element to it, but thinking of what keeps you doing the community theater versus like a private theater like Tuacahn or something like, because that's essentially what Tuacahn is, right? Yeah,
Tuacahn is a regional theater. They are professional theater, and at their category, they hire a certain amount of professional artists, right? Most of their staff are full-time paid staff. They have a large staff. When you think of how many performances they do in a year, they have to have full-time staff people.
to do it.
So the best way I can explain it to somebody maybe like you, think of Tuacahn as the major leagues and think of St. George Musical Theater as the minor leagues, farm team, right?
Okay, yeah.
And we have a great relationship with Tuacahn because we both understand that relationship, and we are trying to nurture, develop the performers of the future. So we get a lot of young people, a lot of kids come into our program, and then a lot of people who maybe don't have the time to dedicate as a full-time career performer. They can come to a show here. We have moms, dads, dentists, physical therapists, teachers, people who just, this is a great hobby for theirs.
Yeah.
And I think the cool thing about a community theater is everything we do, it flows through the community.
Yeah.
All the performers, all the tech crew, all the production team people, your directors, choreographers, music directors, all the performers, and of course, most of our audience are all right here in Southern Utah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's very, very unique. Tuacahn gets people from all over the United States, but we look at Tuacahn as a great example to us. They should inspire us.
Yeah.
And when we go to see their productions, we've had kids throughout the years. They did School of Rock a few years ago, and there was 7 kids who had come through community theater here locally that were on stage. I was very
awesome.
Proud dad moment, right?
Yeah, for
when
sure.
you see some kids that you've worked with here get on a professional stage like that. And we've had kids go on to Broadway. We've had a couple of kids in New York City right now in big shows that were born and raised and did theater here in town. So
that's awesome. And
but not everybody can. That's not necessarily the goal for most kids.
Yeah.
Really, our goal is a little more broader than that, and that's just to be an inspiring outlet for people. And I can tell you from doing this for 26 years, theater does save lives.
It does. It does.
It does. Absolutely.
That the expression of yourself in that way, it's a healthy way to do it. And I think it's cool that you have adults in the community that they're, it's like the dentist, during the day, but at night he's, the judge in Legally Blonde, or
totally.
You know what I mean?
People walk in and all the time they see their dentist there, or they see their physical therapist or whatever, and they just are blown away. They go, I had no idea, right?
Yeah. Why would you?
There's such immense talent here too. That's the other thing. It's the most common comment we get after shows. People say, I had no idea there was this much talent. It compares with any talent anybody has seen. So many of our patrons say, this is like the highest quality production I've seen anywhere in the United States. And the fact that it's $28 and it's all local performers kind of blows them away. I kind of like that, to be the underdog.
Yeah.
So when people come through, you twist the arm of Uncle Nick to go see Music Man for the 18th time.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Music Man, and you bring him in to our space and he kind of goes, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
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 Because they're surprised. So we have that ability to surprise people.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of like being in the underdog.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That might change when we open up a $16 million theater, right?
I know. So that's a good segue, because I know finding the location, the Electric Theater on Tabernacle to begin with. So there's a remodel going on there?
Yes,
or there
so
was?
On the west side of Main Street, anybody who's been in town over 10 years knows where Anderson Lumber used to be, behind St. George Place, which is the new name for the old Kmart Mall.
Right.
So just south of that, there's 2 empty acres. You can see our sign there.
Yep.
So we've reached an agreement with the city. This is what's cool about it, is it's not costing the taxpayers any money. The city maintains the 2 parcels. We're just going to improve it. We're going to build our theater on there.
Yeah.
And then after 30 years, if the city wants the building, they can have it. So it's a total win-win for the community.
I think I read it was a 40-year lease. Is it 30?
I think it. Okay, so we might have a 40-year lease there, and then a 20-year lease on the property across the street.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
but either way, I thought that was awesome.
I
thought it was awesome that was kind of the way. It wasn't like they're selling properety, right? They're like, hey,
no, and there's no tax increase to the community at all.
Yeah.
And that was really important to us.
Yeah.
Other theaters have gotten ballots passed where they approve a tax increase to help pay for things.
It's a bond of some kind.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. If the majority of the population is willing to pay for it, it's cool.
Exactly.
But in our case, this is really a partnership with the city of St. George. We've been in partnership with them for many, many years, and it's been a great partnership, and they realize the value. And you, being in the real estate business, will appreciate the higher vision we have, which is to take that section of South Main Street and turn it upside down and make it a really cool space.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of space down there that isn't really getting utilized. It's close to the freeway, so the access to the community.
700 yards by my count.
Yeah, right. It's
right.
That's exactly
I got off the freeway a couple times. I said, let's see, that's not even half a mile up the freeway.
Yeah.
And so the bigger vision is we have a 400-seat theater on the west side of the street, in the round, of course. Cool. That's what we've done. We've always done that, since 1999. And we're going to have a few cool technological things, like a trap. So that's a stage floor that drops down so you can redress it and bring it back up.
Cool.
Have LED walls on each side.
Nice.
Very comfortable seats with great visibility. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to maintain the immersive, intimate presentation that we have now. That's a part of our signature. This was what our patrons tell. One thing they love about us. We're going to try to maintain that. In a couple of the sections, there's only 2 more rows than what we have now in the Opera House, in a little bitty Opera House where we have 125 seats.
Yeah.
So we're going extra, making an extra effort to maintain that intimate space. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing people ask. Don't build it too big, Bruce.
Yeah.
Right. And so we won't.
This is how I feel about baseball. Like, baseball is meant to be played in a stadium like Wrigley Field, and then the Athletics Vegas stadium, they just released like what that's going to look like and how big that stadium is. It's like, nobody wants to watch baseball like that. So a real baseball fan does not want to sit 7 freaking miles away from home plate.
Comparison of major leagues and minor leagues.
Yeah, right.
One of the coolest things, and I couldn't do it this year, but the last few years, we've driven out to Scottsdale, Arizona, out there in Arizona, to watch spring training.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
Small locations. They're mini versions of professional baseball arenas,
right? Like
3,000 people, 4,000 people, affordable ticket price, and I get to see Clayton Kershaw pitch.
Yeah.
From 100 yards away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's life-changing.
Yeah, it's the way baseball is supposed to be watched.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I wanted so bad to go out and see Shohei Ohtani, this year.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, that doesn't mean everybody, if you want to go see Taylor Swift, you got to do it with 20,000 of her favorite best fans, right?
Exactly.
We get it. We totally get it.
Yeah.
And there's the market for it. Awesome. But what we've experienced over the past 25, 26 years is you could have seen Sound of Music, West Side Story, My Fair Lady several different times in big venues. But when you see it in a small, intimate venue, it really changes the experience for you.
It does. Yeah, I think
you become spoiled, first of all. It's hard for me to sit more than 10 rows back anywhere right now.
Yeah.
But also, these great shows, when you really think about it, they're based on 2 very important things, character and story. Mm-hmm. Ideally, or maybe even optimistically, you could say that if you had a really good story and really good performers, you wouldn't need a lot of accoutrement. You wouldn't need costumes, prompts, spectacles,
LED
waterfalls,
screens.
LED. You could just do it like they did it in the old days of Shakespeare, right?
Right.
So we've taken that to heart and said, we want to tell the story. And one way we can tell the story is if the audience is like a fly on the wall watching. Mm-hmm. We were at Legally Blonde last night. We had an opening night. And there's some things about the show that are pretty contemporary. It's a little pushing the envelope for us, just a little bit. I mean, for crying out loud, we just got done with Sound of Music, and we're going to do Funny Girl in Oklahoma this year, right?
Yeah.
So we love the classics.
Yeah.
But the audiences, our patrons, are telling us, hey, we'd like to see some new things once in a while, right?
Right.
That maybe cater to a little bit younger audience. Mm-hmm. So Legally Blonde has some fun kinds of things in it, but the crux of the story is Elle Woods, who is now a Harvard Law student. Mm-hmm. She gets
to impress her boyfriend, right? Isn't
to impress her boyfriend, exactly. And she on initial opinion is she's just a dumb blonde, right?
Right.
But she feels that she's more than that. But she's got to prove herself at Harvard Law, and which she does. Mm-hmm. It's a great story of self-discovery, building your self-confidence, not judging people by their outward appearance, friendship. There's so many good themes throughout the show. And in one particular moment, a law professor, basically assaults her with a kiss, unsolicited, of course. And it's a real beautiful, poignant moment because now she's reflecting, oh, is this what my experience is?
Yeah.
right? So last night in our intimate space, I can see everybody pretty well, right? And there's 3 women of a certain age across the stage from me, and I could see they were all very moved by it. Yeah. She sings this song called Legally Blonde, but it's not the high energy optimistic. It's a reflection of who she really is. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of story that a lot of women and even men will really appreciate. Yeah. Right? So there's an important, deeper, layered message to even shows that on the surface may seem like just a fun, upbeat show. Mm-hmm. And that's what we love to explore.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking, because one of my questions was, and you kind of already answered it without me answering it, is like, what kind of drives you to pick the shows that you have picked? So the 2024 season, we got Sound of Music. We just ran that one. We got Legally Blonde, Funny Girl, Oklahoma in July and August. We got The Addams Family in September, October, which I think is perfectly timed. And that's probably going to be such a cool show. Yeah. And then you have Annie to round out the end of the year. How do you come up with the different shows? Like, is there a specific process that you've gone to try and?
Yeah, there is. It's complicated. It's in my head.
Seems like it's got to be tough.
And it's just one of those things, there's years of experience, but I will simplify it by telling you what my team does is we curate, let's say 12 musicals that are available, that we have the performers for, that the content that we think our patrons would like. Mm-hmm. We go through all those different things, and then we put it out to surveys. We listen to our audiences. Yeah. And maybe we're a little unique in that regard. We really let our patrons decide our season.
That's cool.
Now, I'll throw some new things in there, things that maybe our patrons aren't aware of. We'll throw that in there. But Legally Blonde was finished number 1 in our patron survey last year. So I'm going to take a hard look at that show, right? Yeah, our patrons may not be always right, but I've learned to really trust them. Yeah. After years and years of in business, I've learned.
Get out of our own way. And
it's not about us. Yeah. Let's listen to the patrons. So I had to get some things approved in terms of the content of that show. And there is still some PG-13 content that you're not going to find in Sound of Music and Funny Girl. So what we hope is to tell our audiences, think of a buffet. Mm-hmm. Maybe Mongolian beef isn't your thing. And you can go back to the shrimp and the taipan noodles or whatever you want that you like, your staples. Mm-hmm. But once in a while, you've got to branch out a little bit. Listen to maybe a younger audience in order to expand your audience.
Try the Kung Pao once in a while.
Try the Kung Pao. If it's a little too spicy, don't go back.
To just go, exactly.
But we're going to have the shrimp next show. Yeah. Right? And so we're hoping that our audiences. Now, let's talk in 6 weeks when the show is over, right?
See how
it's quite a journey, right? Yeah. We sold more than half the run out already. This whole weekend is sold out. Yep. I expect the whole run when the word of mouth goes out, I expect it to sell out every show. And so while we are not completely dependent on the marketing success, because we're an artistic company too. Right. But that tells you something. Anybody in business, whether it's profit or nonprofit, will tell you your audience, your ticket sales will tell you something. Yep. Are you doing the right thing or are you not? So
yeah, you're missing the mark.
It'll be interesting, but we're still learning. I mean, every show, every journey is kind of new, and you have to really be open to that and be willing to change your mind a little bit and explore and expand and diversify. So these are all things that we're learning. So anyway.
So you have the shows are coming out. You have this big project that you guys have on the agenda. Right. The mayor in her State of the City address pointed out that it's a race between you guys and the city hall to see who can get built first.
The city's always going to beat you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They get a head start, and they
probably got all their plans approved in 24 hours. Come on now.
Yeah, they didn't have a whole lot.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
So as of right now, you're still raising money for the larger theater.
Correct. And the theater across the street, which we'll tell you a little about, which we're very excited about too. Uh-huh. So when we were designing the new theater, we need 2 rehearsal spaces in addition to the performance space. Okay. That's why we are in the social hall as much, because the main stage is occupied with whatever show you're doing. Right. We just finished Sound of Music. We're doing Legally Blonde, so that's in the Opera House. Mm-hmm. We just cast Funny Girl, and we're getting ready to cast Oklahoma. So in any given time,
you got things moving.
We're going to do 178 performances this year. So we are a busy theater. So you need 2 rehearsal spaces. So the idea came, Well, we could build the rehearsal spaces in the brand new theater, and you'll appreciate this as a real estate agent, at $650 a square foot. Or across the street, we can remodel the old Cinema 6 movie studio,
right,
and remodel that for $95 a square foot or whatever it came in, right?
Yeah.
So we're putting 2 rehearsal spaces in there, but the big auditorium number 1, is going to be our live performance space. So we're building a 31-foot wide stage for performances, tribute concerts, youth productions, stand-up comedy nights, something really unique and alternative to the musicals across the street.
Okay,
and in my opinion, this community needs more live performing entertainment, right?
Yeah,
I think. And so it's going to be very different than what we do.
Yeah.
We're planning on a tribute like to a Neil Diamond, Barbra Streisand, or a Linda Ronstadt, or a country tribute, a Beatles tribute. And then we'll have youth productions. There's not enough venues for the increasingly in-demand youth programs.
Yep.
We want to have our own in-house youth program, which we had years ago, but we haven't had the resources.
Yeah.
And that's very important to our core mission to nurture and develop all the young people.
Yeah.
And parents these days love what we do. They love having their kids under a roof where they know they're going to get that discipline. It's going to be a safe place for them. And they love coming and watch their kids perform.
It's funny because I have my 2 boys, they go to Vista.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They just finished their expansion, and they have this big old theater that they have. I don't know if you've seen it. It's so amazing.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All the people over there, we know they're all people who
they're all the
worked
people.
with.
They're
Yeah.
the people.
Shelley Thomas, who was one of the teachers over there, just choreographed Sound of Music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jake Thomas over there, he was our Arthur in Camelot last year.
That's awesome.
The theater community, Robert, is really tight around here.
It's tight.
Everybody knows everybody. It's awesome.
So we're watching this production of The Nutcracker last at Christmas time.
Yeah, right.
And every grade is incorporated into that, right? You have kindergartners all the way up, right into high school.
Awesome.
It's so awesome. And I couldn't help, as I'm watching this, I'm like, I remember doing performances in the gym in my elementary school, right at the elevated little stage that they have with the basketball hoops folded up and the wood floor. Like, this is in my mind, and I just I couldn't help but think, how inspiring it can be to a kid to do it on that kind of a stage versus just the kind of the old school gyms that at least I grew up with, and so thinking of like those opportunities and more of those opportunities, because Vista is just the one school. I don't think there's really any of the other schools that have anything remotely close to what they have.
Vista and the high school programs, the middle school programs, they fill a very important need, because unfortunately the funding for arts programs are on the decline across the country. I have 4 grandkids. 3 of them go to elementary schools up in Midvale, Utah. Mm-hmm. None of them have even one music class during the day.
Really?
Not a music class.
It's interesting. So it makes me think, what do you think is the reasoning for that? Because one of my questions was like,
or the reasoning why we have it down here. I'll tell you what I think. And that is, I think in certain school districts, arts is one of the first things that gets cut. I kind of get it. STEM, science, technology, engineering, math has become such a focus. There's such a huge need for it, right? We get that. Sports programs, you're not going to cut sports programs, right? They still are the dominant characteristic of entertainment. I mean, look at the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. But if you go see high school football, or for heaven's sakes, college, anywhere in Texas or whatever, sports is going to dominate. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I'm a sports guy, right? The thing is, sports does not speak to all kids.
Yeah.
But arts can bridge that gap with the kids that maybe they just don't have the physical ability or the drive or for whatever you want to call it to perform in sports. And yet theater fills an important void in their life. So when funding is tight, which it often is these days, schools probably seem somewhat forced to cut back on arts programs. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to say, what can we do to help?
I just can't. I guess I disagree with the premise that the funding is tight. I look at our state budget.
That's another podcast.
I look at our state budget.
We need to get some legislators in here.
But the amount of money that is going into the education program is a massive amount of money. Yes. I don't understand. I legitimately don't understand where how am I missing the gap of the amount of money, both from the federal government and the state government, getting it to the actual school?
Yeah.
Why is there such... It's like there's money disappearing somewhere.
So out in your lobby, my wife, Ellen, she is better suited to this.
Yeah.
She just retired as a teacher for 32 years. You want to talk education funding?
I do.
She is the expert. And that would actually be a great podcast to get several teachers in here. You'd have to get retired teachers who are a little more free with talking. And
I think, isn't that what tenure's for? Isn't that why we have tenure?
Yeah.
You have teachers speak their mind without fear of getting fired?
Bottom line is the performing arts especially can really, here's some things we know through research. Mm-hmm. Kids that are involved in the arts tend to excel in academics too, because a lot of the same principles they learn through hard work, discipline, focus helps them off stage as well.
Right.
And you can see that at Vista, you know, and we love what Vista does. Their kids that come in there from their program, from the elementary school, and then come try out for our shows, they're well taught, disciplined. They know why they're on stage, and we love correlating or collaborating with those. We're really fortunate. The bottom line is we're really fortunate to have so many performing arts. There are many cities 5 times the size of St. George that do not have the arts programs in the school and the community theater arts access. We came here from Bakersfield, California, which had a population back when we moved here of 350,000, in one community theater. That's it. We've got at least 6 here in town, plus phenomenal high school, middle school, intermediate school arts, charter school like Vista, Utah Arts Academy, another great school, you know, and we're all trying to lift the same rock, and that is to nurture and develop the youth of our society, who are our future. So
absolutely. So I'm gonna transition to the. I want your perspective on the film studio that's coming into town. Is
awesome.
Is it on your radar? Is that something? Do you think that is something that's attractive because we have so many performing arts as such a small town? Is that part of the decision?
Look, I don't care if you're Bruce Bennett or Kevin Costner, when you come to town and you spend any time in southern Utah, don't you kind of fall in love with the place?
Yeah, I understand.
And there's a lot of reasons. Again, another podcast.
Yeah.
Why Southern Utah, right?
Yeah.
You know, from what we've heard from our people, Kevin Costner loves the area, loves the people, loves the ease at which he can get things done, loves the ability to find crews and find lots of resources here available. Wouldn't you build a studio in southern Utah if you could choose any place in the United States? Pretty much the great climate. And so I think it's great. Film is near and dear to my heart. I wrote a film review column for 15 years in a local newspaper, so I got very close to a lot of the film people in the film industry. It's long overdue. We should have had a film studio by now because there aren't very many in Utah. Yeah. So if Kevin Costner has to build one, fabulous. Yeah. Fabulous. And I hope he finds actors here, technicians, camera people, support people for that. I think it's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And from what I've heard of Kevin, pretty generous guy. He's going to give back to the community too. So I think we're really lucky to get that. The Utah Film Commission has done an awesome job bringing film crews here because they know when film crews come here, they fall in love with the place. Yeah.
Well, and I think they all kind of funnel together, right? All of these different things, like having the community theater, having different forms of art here, because we really do. We have all of the forms of art here. We have sculptors and painters and the live performances and all those things. So it's pretty cool to watch and see it continue to grow and develop. So go from where you started to where we are now has been a long road. Have we ever had a lot of pressure? Have you ever felt like it was really difficult to push the rock and, forward?
What we do, that's a good question, Robert. What we do is really hard. Yeah. I don't know that it gets easier necessarily, but the true leap that we've made over the past few years is to get the right staffing involved. That's key. Because I can't do it alone. I've got a staff now of 13 part-time people. They're amazing. We have a technical staff. We have box office staff, we have ushers and house managers. It really takes a village to do what we do. And so the piece of progress that's been really, for me personally, particularly rewarding is to surround myself with talented people. Isn't that the key to success, though?
That's it.
Come on.
Yeah. I hear it all
just
the time.
unlocked it. It's the silver bullet.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people that are much smarter than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe there is some wisdom in being able to do that, right? Because it's hard too.
Yeah, it is.
Because you have to find people that work with you.
And then, but even the leadership has to have a passion for what they do, and you clearly have it, right? Like you could tell how much you love this, and
you wouldn't do it if you didn't have the passion. This is what I preach.
Yeah,
that's why passion is so critical to the artist, because you wouldn't do the hard things, the difficult things, to get you to create that art, unless you had a passion for it. However, there's also, I think, one of the things the board appreciates about me is my business background. Right? Walt Disney said that his greatest regret in life was that he didn't spend more time fundraising because his dreams were so expensive.
Interesting.
So I like to call it the commercial and the cultural. Right? The cultural is what kind of artistic things can you create? What kind of artists can you create? How can you inspire people? But the commercial is what funds your cultural dreams, your cultural goals and objectives, right? So at least as far as a nonprofit organization, you really need to have both things. But that doesn't mean the be-all, end-all is financial, because there's a lot of smaller organizations that don't care about the money. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know, I want to sit with my guitar and play on the street somewhere. I want to be a busker in Ireland someday, you know, it's still on my radar, and that's why I'm getting my hand fixed, you know, so I can go live that dream somewhere. I don't care about the money at all. I want to open my guitar case and play some Tom Petty for somebody in Dublin. You know? So there's that aspect of it too, for sure.
Well, and so that's a good segue. So you're still fundraising. So you're most of the way there for
over half
of the way there.
Both projects have a total of about 16 million. Which is very reasonable. If you look on the back of that brochure, you'll see 6 very nice theaters have been built in Utah in the last 10 years. And they all have price tags of about 53, 83. Taylorsville was 39 million.
The Sorensen in Cedar City is 50 million.
Yep.
Pleasant Grove, 53 million.
Our project, while $16 million is a lot of money, our project is very modest.
Yeah.
And our community has been incredibly generous.
Yeah.
So we're really fortunate, but we need some more to get to the final destination. We haven't broke ground yet at the new theater. So everybody who's raised money has told me, Bruce, you're doing great.
Yeah.
If you've got over half of your money raised so far, and you haven't broken ground yet, because when you break ground, I think it creates even more excitement. People know what's really going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a snowball effect to it. And
I think on one of the articles I heard at one of the fundraisers, you guys raised $1 million.
Yeah, that picture that you've got on from St. George News, and that was all local citizens who love what we do. That's phenomenal. $1 million in 1 day.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. It was incredible, and that's the kind of generosity we have in this community. I cannot express how generous, and I don't necessarily mean just total dollar amounts or individual dollar amounts. I mean, I go to the mailbox every week, and I see this every week. I see something like this. Somebody has included a check for $50 or $150 with a scribbled note. Thank you for all you do. I love the show. I wept as I watched Sound of Me. You know, those kinds of things. You know, that $100 donation was probably a big sacrifice. This person might even be on a fixed income. Yeah. And they could have spent that money much better in other ways, but they love what we do. And that's what this community, that represents our community.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So but if there is anybody out there
that's what I was going to say,
who wants a great philanthropic venue, we're planning, Robert, to bring 80,000 patrons to that area a year.
80,000.
So we are going to have a very big impact on this community. Yeah. And we want to do it right. And so if there's anybody out there who wants to be part of it, we'll
St. George musicaltheater.com. Is that what it is?
Yeah, sgmt.org or sgmusicaltheater.com. We'll put your name on a building.
Yeah,
we'll put it on a restroom.
Why not?
Come on, right? The Robert Macfarlane men's room. Come on.
Put it on
has
a brick.
Ring to it.
Put it on a brick.
Put it on a brick. Certainly on a digital display.
Why not?
We're going to have all kinds of digital displays in there. But seriously, you know, we've got some very generous people, and there are people out there looking for something that really impacts the community. And community theater has a unique impact. We can impact 6-year-olds to 68-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, we just cast Funny Girl, and there's a woman in that show, 72 years old. She's the sweetest woman ever. I've been on vacation with her. She's so sweet.
That's awesome.
And this is giving her something, a drive, a passion at that stage in her life. Does that not blow your mind?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That you can have people 6 years old and 72 on the same stage trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I submit there's very few things in life that can
level the playing field like that.
Right. That just can impact entire different spectrums of our community in such a major way.
Man, well, I love what you do. I really do. I'm excited to see this progress and to see the theater be built.
Thank you.
What else do I need to know? Is there anything else? What should somebody else know?
Most everything you need to know about us is on our website.
Okay.
Like us on Facebook. We have a great Facebook page and Instagram for all those people under 30.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing, what I tell people, Robert, is just come see a show.
Yeah.
Come see a show. It's
Legally Blonde. It's going right now.
It says
April
most
20th.
about who we are.
Yeah.
And when you see the energy and you see the talent, we say, there's no reason to go to New York City, baby.
Yeah.
Stay right here.
You got it right here.
Although we do go to New York City a lot, to be inspired. But boy, there's a lot of talent here, and we're just grateful that we could be part of it.
Sweet. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man.
You bet.
Look forward to seeing everything else come out. I'm actually really looking forward to the Addams Family. That one's that one's that's on the calendar already.
Yeah, in
for me,
October.
So
Perfect.
It's going to be great, man.
Right. Yeah, no, we're looking forward
but
to it.
we'll maybe we'll have your wife come in. We'll talk about the educational side of things. But
I think she would love to do that.
Yeah.
Very, very important as well.
Okay, man. Well,
thanks, Robert.
That's it. We'll have a good
Thank
one.
you to all
Thanks
your
for listening,
listeners.
guys. We'll see you out there.